Welcome to an exploration of one of the most recognizable and perhaps least understood wedding traditions, the bridal bouquet toss. We see it at almost every wedding, a moment of fun and anticipation. But why exactly does the bride throw her beautiful bouquet into a crowd of single friends? It seems like a simple game, right? The unmarried guest who catches the bouquet is supposedly next to walk down the aisle. But this modern interpretation is far removed from its rather intense historical origins. Join us as we trace the journey of the bouquet from its surprisingly dark and pragmatic beginning to the joyful ceremonial custom we know today. To understand the bouquet toss, we first have to look at some of the darker, sometimes frantic origins of wedding day traditions, particularly those focused on stealing pieces of the bride's luck. During the Middle Ages in Europe, with stories especially from 14th century England, it was widely believed that touching the bride brought good fortune. Guests were eager to get a piece of her luck, sometimes literally. The superstition led to chaotic scenes where wedding guests, desperate for a slice of the newlywed's luck, would chase the bride and try to tear off pieces of her clothing. In fact, the targets were often the bride's dress, veil, flowers, or garter, which were all considered lucky charms. Can you imagine the pressure on the poor bride?
This high-pressure situation is exactly where the idea of the toss originated, as a strategic distraction and escape mechanism. Historically, this didn't happen at a party hours later. It happened the moment the bride and groom stepped out of the church. To get away from overzealous guests waiting at the exit, the bride would intentionally throw her bouquet, or sometimes her garter, into the crowd. This sudden distraction gave her and the groom a moment to run and escape the frenzy. So the bouquet became a sacrificial offering, a substitute for ripping apart her wedding gown. It was a way to appease the crowd and keep her expensive dress intact. Interestingly, the items the bride carried held strong significance long before flowers were purely for beauty. Early bouquets served a practical, protective purpose. In ancient Egypt, brides carried sheaves of wheat for fertility. In ancient Greece and Rome, and later in medieval Europe, bridal bouquets were actually composed of strong-smelling herbs, spices, and grains, such as dill, garlic, thyme, rosemary, and wheat. These were thought to ward off evil spirits, bring fertility, and bless the marriage. Dill was even believed to work as an aphrodisiac during the wedding feast.
And contrary to a popular internet myth, this had little to do with masking body odor. Medieval people did bathe, using soap and public bathhouses, though not daily by modern standards. The idea that they bathed only once a year is highly unlikely. The herbs were carried mainly for spiritual protection, and while their pleasant scent was certainly welcome in a crowded church, and some later writers suggested odor masking, that was not the original purpose. Over time, these traditional herbs were phased out, and flowers were introduced, not just for their appearance, but for their own specific symbolic meanings. This really took off in the Victorian era, when the language of flowers became popular. Roses for love, lilies for purity, myrtle for marriage and fidelity, a tradition cemented when Queen Victoria carried myrtle and orange blossom in 1840. Fast forward a few centuries and the dangerous scramble for good luck softened considerably. The timing shifted from a frantic exit at the church steps to a scheduled event during the reception. The motivation for the toss evolved entirely. It went from a bride needing to escape a mob to a bride voluntarily sharing the good fortune of her marriage with her friends. Today, the modern interpretation is a light-hearted prediction. The person who catches the bouquet is believed to be the next among the single guests to get married. The chase is purely for fun and anticipation. This brings us to the familiar ceremony we witness at modern weddings, a highlight of the reception evening. All the single guests gather together, ready to compete for the floral prize. The bride turns her back, the music builds, and the bouquet flies through the air, culminating in a moment of laughter and cheering. And since we're talking about old wedding timing, the idea of the June bride comes from the same ancient world.
June is named for Juno, the Roman goddess of marriage and protector of women, and Romans held festivals for her in June to bring good luck to vows. The month stayed popular in Victorian times because fresh flowers were abundant, and in farming communities, a June wedding allowed for a summer pregnancy, so a bride could still help with the harvest. So, the bridal bouquet toss is much more than just a playful tradition. It's a journey from a desperate act of distraction at a church exit through centuries as a protective herbal charm, to a celebratory moment of sharing happiness. A fascinating evolution of human custom. The next time you're at a wedding, you'll know that the bouquet toss isn't just about catching flowers, it's a living piece of history.